Welcome everybody to Virtual Town Hall. You can see we have a placeholder up here inviting you to practice with Lama Surya Das in his masterclass course. This is his third one, and the upcoming one is called Dharma Dances. It's September through April 11 to 1. So do consider signing up for that. You can find more information at www.dzogchen.org. So good to see you all, and good to see our brother Pete Sachs, who will be leading us in our meditation practice today. Pete, good to be with you. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Alex. All right. Guess what I'll do is bang the gong and see what happens. All right, so now we've a little more fully arrived. We've arrived. Now it's fully arrived. Take a moment, maybe just do a couple deep breaths just to ground ourselves in our body. I feel like I could use a couple deep breaths. So breathe it out. Breathe in. And release. And again, breathe out. Breathe in. And release. Now this time, really do it. Breathe out. Breathe in. Brief hold. And release. Now just sitting, recognizing. You take a moment to realize how amazing it is to be anything at all, to be able to sit, be able to look out over this screen, this marvel of technology, to have a body. Where did it come from? How did it get here? What is it? And what does it feel like? How is it sitting? All right. So Dzogchen, it's all seemingly about ways of cutting through ego mind, relative mind, cutting through. Lama says it all the time. Trek should sitting, just sitting, seeing through, being through, right? Cutting through what we could call regular mind, I suppose, for us here, Westerners. ordinary mind is actually what we might call Rigpa in certain circles, because ordinary mind, the most ordinary thing of mind is pure awareness. That is ordinary. That's just what it is, unchanging. So ordinary mind is a little bit different, but we're talking a little bit about regular mind, ego mind, the mind that is endlessly concerned with the self that we understand, self, right? What am I getting? What am I doing? What is this person doing? What is that doing? What am I feeling? That self, right? So cutting through, and we're trying to get to authentic presence, right? Authentic presence, pure awareness. How can we explain it? Sort of beyond explanation. Just that sense of isness. Again, these words very hard to define. This, what we're talking about, very, very hard to define. But isness, once you start adding other words to it, we start to create more concepts around it. But is, what is. So there's many ways of cutting through, or beginning to cut through. Let's say doorways to pure awareness, to be able to sit in pure awareness, to Rigpa, to let's call it real mind, mind with a capital M, or ordinary mind if we want to get into that. So in my life, I've seen many ways of this sort of happening. A lot of times it happens by accident, or for me, it's happened many times by accident, right? But we have this idea of what life is, what we think life is, our ideas of what it is, and then there are these moments that sort of cut through that, right? And some of them could be peak experiences of some kind, right? Whether I've been a skateboarder for various times in my life, pretty intense one. And there's been moments where my life flashed before my eyes, where it's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, holy, this is, and everything like just flits away, right? All of the things I was thinking about prior to that, what this person said to me, if my band's going to play, if I'm going to make it to work on time, what am I doing? Like all that goes. And there's this space of just some kind of pure being. And I've also seen how this pure being, pure action comes out beyond what I'm doing, beyond my even recognition of what's happening. Something can correct the course. Something can move us. And I've seen this many times in those type of experiences. Perhaps some people could have some kind of sickness, a peak sickness experience that cuts through, right? These are just, I'm speaking of like natural things that sort of happen in our lives. Perhaps psychedelic experiences or drug experiences or something, or these are peak experiences that stop our mind in the way that we always think about it, right? And what we're doing in Dzogchen is finding techniques that work for us to do that purposefully on our own, and to be able to continually sit in that and create this moment to cut through regular mind, right? That's what we're doing, right? This is why we don't spend a lot of time focusing on the specific experiences that come out of practice, right? Or the even if there's like cities that come through or things that we gain, we don't focus on those, because that is still part of the relative world of existence and relative mind, right? So we're trying to get beyond that prior to any action and inaction, right? Say the great Tao is beyond action and inaction. So we talked about peak experience, peak emotions, of course, deep suffering. A lot of people find the Dharma through intense suffering, fear, anxieties, deep anxieties that you realize are running on their own. if you dive into them, you can sometimes be beyond it, realize that there's a mechanism running and that there's another mechanism that's aware of it running, right? And these kind of sufferings or mental states can add joy, intense joy. People often talk about when their child is born, like the world stops, right? It's just joy beyond, right? These are hard things, of course, to muster up on our own. Pure joy. How do you muster pure joy, right? We can learn to do that. There's exercises, there's meditations in doing this, but it's hard to come from a contrived state to get to a state of pure joy, right? It takes a lot of practice. I haven't quite gotten there yet. Awe, etc. And then transcendent feelings, right? Deep gratitude, deep compassion, empathy for others, right? This is another big part of the Buddhist path, right? If we can create this, replace self with this idea of self and other, if we can augment that, if we can put the other in place of the self, of our neurotic tendency to focus on ourselves and what we're going to get, if we can invert that relationship, it does something so deep to our psychology that it just stops, right? And this is another path, right, to Buddhahood, to stop the ordinary mind, right? And this is obviously one, these are not mutually exclusive, of course. Like, we work with all of these as much as we can, what we need in every moment. And then there's which fall a bit under peak experiences, but these become more sort of the ones that we can do, we can practice over and over again, is sort of meditative, concentrating sort of practices, non-ordinary states, perhaps, that we can gain through hyper focus, and things of that nature, like Lama says, sharpening the focus, sharpen, right? And be able to see through, cut through. Right, so that's also another thing that we know on the Buddhist path. There's, I believe it's 84,000 practices or something. They're probably way more than that at this point, because as far as I understand, nothing ever stops and the numbers just keep going up in infinity. So who knows? I don't know if anyone's actually tallying that. But there's so many practices, right? So, but all of them come back to the same thing: cutting through regular egocentric mind. That is the main focus, right? As the main goal. If there's a goal in the goal list, that's the goal for us as Dzogchenans, right? To get through past our regular thinking mind, to exist in the possibility and the mystery of pure awareness, and to be in that, comfortable in that, living that. Like, that's really the goal, beyond sort of these dualistic ideas of what's good, bad, and so forth. And then from that space is where Buddha action, pure Buddha action, manifests out of that pure space of awareness. So what I find is a great tool for this, as far as an everyday consistent type of practice, and I think many people find that there's a power in this, is through sound and music, right, as a doorway, let's say, as an object to help us get through the doorway to pure awareness, right? We've talked about many. There's, we're talking about meditative practices now, not the ones that sort of happen naturally. We're talking about focus on breath, right? This is a practice, right, that helps us to calm the mind, to hone our focus, right, to then be able to expand our awareness, right, to cut through regular mind. So sound has a big, in sound and music, I mean, is, there's all sorts of esoteric talks about, in the beginning was the word or the tone, and the tone, the word was God and all this. There's a lot of, hoopla and esoteric sort of talking around sound and its properties. And it's sort of, I'm not a scientist, but I hang out with a couple sound scientists, and believe me, this talk would go for 2 hours, and you were not sure that you would gain anything on the other side that you could bring to your meditation practice, right? But sound is really powerful and cool and mysterious. I just a couple thoughts. I do a lot of events and things like that for my work, and I've always sort of struck for many years how you have different departments in an event. You have like the sound guys, sound people, you have the lighting people, you have, you maybe have the staging folks, right? You have the video people, whatever. But the only department that could really hurt people, aside from some kind of like crazy accident, like a stage falling or a light falling, whatever, is the sound people. You blast, you have feedback, you have something, people hold their ears. You can, through sound, you can affect people in such a dramatic way, everybody in the room. And we gather in gigantic gatherings to be with each other with sound, right? This is the cause for the largest gatherings, either to hear someone's words, I guess, that maybe be a little bit more off conceptual, but like, what is the most consistent art form that draws the people, right? It is sound, it is music. Music just, it affects us in such a deep and mysterious way. So it's simply, from what I can see, the sort of most accessible and sort of powerful tool that everyone can sort of get behind. I mean, obviously focusing on the breath, I'm not taking away from things like that, but from, even a large gathering of how you can sort of affect people and bring them all into one sort of wavelength, right? And there's obviously a lot of aspects to a breath. One of them is audible, right? Auditory. So I was thinking about that, and I actually found a quote. I was reading a book. I was listening to a book. I don't have time to read books. I try to read books. They're all over the place, and I don't really get to them. I read pieces of books. I'm also trying to read all this, Dzogchen Tibetan stuff, and it's just like, oh yeah, I think I'll just, who knows? That's what I'm supposed to learn anyway. I don't know. I'll just go, I won't know, and I'll go forward 10,000 years. How about that? Don't know. But Stephen Batchelor, Living with the Devil, is a book that came out a couple of years ago. Stephen Batchelor is someone I believe Lama hung out with in India. Very sort of amazing writer, kind of talks quite a bit about Buddhism from a sort of agnostic, secular standpoint, which is kind of like his thing he's been doing. And he says, meditative awareness is more akin to hearing well than seeing clearly. When looking intensely at a visual object, we tend to aim a narrow beam of attention onto something outside ourselves. But when we listen mindfully, we open our awareness in all directions in order to receive the sounds that pour in. Right, so that speaks to more of our Dzogchen wide Trekshit, right? And what's the easiest, you sort of go through, right? If we're sitting in Trekshit, right, where we're eyes wide, we're wide as the sky, right? We're trying to like eye gaze. But to bring a panoramic awareness to our vision, right, is very different than when you say, okay, now listen panoramically, right? Just try it for a second. Notice you can listen from all directions, internal, external, You can hear from inside, you can hear outside, you can hear up, down, everywhere. So meditative awareness is more akin to hearing well than seeing clearly. He also was speaking the Chinese Surangama Sutra. The Buddha asked the congregation about the most effective way to awaken. So Buddha's sitting there speaking, asking, what do you guys think? 84,000 ways to go. Choose one. And Avalokiteshvara replies, who we often talk about as the Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig, Buddha of compassion. Manifestation of the Buddha of compassion. Try and get a little bit more clear. Replies that using the organ of hearing to quiet the mind for its entry into the stream of meditation is the best method. This is what Avalokiteshvara says. Using the organ of hearing to quiet the mind for its entry into the stream of meditation is the best method. Now, we're not going to get stuck on the best. I won't, it's fine. And interestingly enough, Avalokiteshvara name in China morphed into the archetype in China morphed into the female Buddha figure of Guanyin, whose name translates into the hearer of sounds. So compassion, Buddha of compassion, the hearer of sounds, which makes a lot of sense, right? People want to be heard. People, to understand where someone's coming from, you have to hear, you have to listen. So listening, this idea of deep listening, works across both of these, sort of compassion and wisdom, right? Deep listening as the way to both compassion and wisdom. So again, not saying it's not necessarily an advertisement for sound. I don't know that sound has some kind of political action committee or any type of donation button. If you can donate to sound, please. Crush your subscribe button. Subscribe to sound. But I do think it's very, very useful to think about our awareness and our meditation practice as a sort of deep listening, right? Now, not literally with our ears. We're using this again as a doorway in, right? It is literally listening with our ears, but there's beyond just what our ears, right? When you're in a dream, you hear sounds. Are you hearing your sounds with your ears? So deep listening. So I've been trying to I've been generating much more of a devotional practice through chanting and playing music and writing music. And that's sort of a big part of my practice these days. So we'll just do some 7-line supplication. Didn't realize this talk was going to be so long. I apologize for that. So again, we're going to use this as a meditation. All right? Just being with the sound, chanting. If you know the words are up on the screen, not digging into the meaning of them. We're not trying to want to put your heart into it, your heart into it, your devotion into it, whatever that is, whatever you need to generate that, if you need to visualize something, whatever that may be, but to put your heart, the sound cuts through to the heart of things. Guru Pema Siri Om 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 Mensa Guru Pema Siri Om 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 Mensa Guru Pema Siri Let's go through one more round and really listen to yourself. Listen to the world around you. Just listen. Listen a little deeper, a little more attentively. Om Om Mensa Guru Pema Siri 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 Om Mensa Guru Pema Siri Om Mensa Guru Pema Siri Mensa Guru Pema Now taking same awareness and resting it just on the sound. Use the sound as a reference point to put your attention on. As a mechanism for hearing, for this meditative, contemplative listening, like Stephen Batchelor was saying. So listening to the sound the whole way, and continue to listen even when you think the sound is done. And just sitting. Body like a mountain. Just let it sit in a heap. We say listen to your body. Hear where the discomfort is and allow it to relax. Just breathing. Breath like the ocean's waves, inexorably according to causes and conditions. Just noticing, aware, listening to the breath, not directing it. Another way of just cutting through regular mind is to focus on the breath. Listen to it, in and out, watch. We feel like we control the breath sometimes and we put our focus on it, but do we? Do we? If cutting through our ego-minded idea that we control what's going on here. So we're just sitting, just breathing, just being. Just being aware, not fabricating, not following any shiny thing that wants to capture attention, noticing the shiny object that wants attention. Just being without having to chase. Being aware of the thing grabbing attention, being aware that there is something of which attention can be grabbed, then something that is aware of both. What is aware of all of it? Now just being aware, listening deeply from inside, from afar, from up, down, all around, awareing, interested, curious, but not bound. Like Lama says, letting go means letting come and go. Just letting come and go. Like the sky allows all to come and go through it. Mind is the space which all comes and goes. Our true nature. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Out of the space of pure being, compassion for all beings naturally flows out. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 The space which allows all, has compassion and love for all that occurs naturally, of course. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Space that is the womb, the beginning of all, gives birth to all experience. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Our ultimate moms, our ultimate mothers, our true being. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 We dedicate the practice. Bring it up a little, Jiksho, Semcho, Rinpoche, Makke Vanam, Ke Gyur rising sun of bodhicitta dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are illumined and awakened. And I bow to the Buddha in you. Don't overlook it.
Pete Sachs, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful. I hope that you got as much out of that as I did. Wow. It's so much to say. I want to thank Pete for being here. I want to thank for all of you for making space to be here this beautiful Sunday. Don't forget to sign up for Lama's masterclass. I will throw a link to that in the chat, as well as for donations and for membership. So friends, just want to remind you that when you sign up for the masterclass as a whole package, you get a little bit of money off and even a little bit more money off if you're a member. Thank you so much, Pete. Oh, I wish there were time for questions. I have things to ask, but beautiful bringing your own practice of sound and cutting through with the practice of sound in Dzogchen meditation. Gorgeous. Menla, do you have anything else that you want to add, or are we all set for this week? Okay, I'm going to pop that stuff in the chat. So good to be with you, friends. Thank you.